Now, I realize I may just be preaching to the choir of cinephiles alike when I say this, but Robert Eggers may just be a master. Is that just me? Didn't really think so. The Northman is the latest feature film directed by Robert Eggers, who also brought you The Witch and The Lighthouse, two of my favorite, art housey style horror flicks, and it stars a great cast. Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman is in there, Willem Dafoe. It's just stacked from top to bottom. And we catch up with Prince Amleth, who's on the verge of becoming a man when his father, played by Ethan Hawke, is brutally murdered by his uncle Fjolnir, who then in turn kidnaps the boy's mother, played by Nicole Kidman. 2 decades later, Amleth transforms into a Viking, played by Alexander Skarsgård, who raids Slavic villages. And he soon meets a seeress who reminds him of his vow: save his mother, kill his uncle, and avenge his father. I will avenge you, father. I will save you, mother. I will kill you, Fjolnir. I don't know why he sounds like Liam Neeson when I imitate him, but work with me here. But that is your Cliff Notes basic plot of this movie. That mantra that you saw in the trailer, that's his simplest of objectives. And you know what? With what we have here, simple as it is, it works. Robert Eggers, I feel like, has done it again with The Northman. And there is a lot of good that we have to talk about here. And this is something that I really would love to digest and examine more and more, just because Robert Eggers throws so much at you every single film he's done. The Witch is a phenomenal horror film, which nobody is talking about anymore. And The Lighthouse is one of those movies that I consider a masterpiece of the last decade. So needless to say, I was pretty anxious to see this movie. And you know what? I did not leave disappointed. This cinematography is absolutely unbelievable. If this does not get nominated in that category at the Oscars, I don't know what they're doing. There were a lot of shots in here that reminded me of The Revenant, on location in Iceland, using natural lighting. Robert Eggers' direction in general is solid, but I noticed that he really loved playing with shadows in this feature. The whole climax and the way it's choreographed is super intense, and you really feel the vitriol between both combatants in there. And you can really sense that hatred, but it's basically 2 silhouettes fighting each other up against a big wall of fire. And man, it was so fucking dope. The kills in here and just the limbs that are everywhere. There's a character that loses his nose. Oh, so brutal. This is exactly what I was looking for in a Viking feature with Robert Eggers attached to it. And the violence never really feels like it overstays its welcome. It only feels like it adds to the tension in this whole conflict. Speaking of tense, let's talk about Alexander Skarsgård for a minute. This is a guy who has done some good work in the past. You might remember seeing him as the title character in David Yates' Tarzan feature. Yeah, who remembers that film that came out 5 years ago? I enjoyed that film. I might be the only one, but screw it. I like it. Alexander Skarsgård obviously blew that performance out of the water with this, but you know, this is a guy I really would love to see him get more work after this, because he is super brooding, he's super intense. I, for one, would love to see him tackle some deeper characters after this, because his motive is very simple. He's all centered around vengeance. He even has a line in here that says, "That's all I've ever lived by, was vengeance." It's not a direct quote, obviously. I've only seen the movie one time. But you kind of get the gist of his character, and to me, it's not really all that interesting if he's that one note. The best characters in all of cinema, I mean, if we want to talk about vengeance, look at Bruce Wayne / Batman just from a month ago. There's so many freaking layers to that guy, and you just wanted to learn every possible thing you could about him. Amleth, I was more interested in his extended family's history more so than Amleth himself. He just felt like the guy that was caught in the middle of everything and is just trying to restore peace. Which there's nothing wrong with that, being just the simplest of characters, but if he's the central focus here, I was just looking for a little bit more emotional connection there. But Alexander Skarsgård, this is the best performance of his career so far, and his ceiling is incredibly high from this point. He had the physicality down to a T. He had the intensity down. He was a Viking. He was a Viking. Kevin Feige better have this guy on speed dial if he wants some intense action later on. The supporting cast, to me, were the most interesting characters of the bunch. Ethan Hawke plays the father who gets killed right at the end of the first act, and listen, again, you were not expecting to have a bunch of Ethan Hawke in here regardless because of that trailer. But with the screen time that he has, he is so freaking brilliant on screen. There is a little scene that he shares with his son and Willem Dafoe, who plays the fool in this, around a campfire. It's kind of strange, but with the Vikings being these gnarly savages here, and that's another thing that Robert Eggers catches perfectly, the time period. He knows how to transport you back in time. The Lighthouse, perfect example of that. I felt like I was in that building with those two men, and the Northman with this cinematography, this direction, and these rituals, I legitimately felt like I was back in the 9th or the 10th century at this point. It was freaking great. Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe, who, again, I'm sorry to disappoint all the Willem Dafoe fans. This isn't exactly a spoiler, but he's not in the movie as much as the trailer makes him out to be. He's there, but he pretty much disappears after a bunch of those rituals. Not to say that he's bad in the movie at all, because, you know, it's Willem Dafoe we're talking about. But again, I should warn you, he's not in the movie as much as you think. Nicole Kidman in this film may have been the best that she's been in years, and she was just nominated for an Academy Award a year ago for being the Ricardos. She was so much better in this movie. She completely transformed herself, and it is so creepy, the stuff that she does, and the things that are revealed about her character, especially as you learn more and more about this tragic family history. It's just, I was gripped. I was hooked. I was in it. And yeah, not gonna lie, there is a scene that she shares with her son that will make you feel uncomfortable, but that's the purpose of a scary movie in general, is to kind of make you feel queasy and unsettled. Nicole Kidman did a brilliant job of that. You know who was especially great in this, though? Anya Taylor-Joy. I mean, I've been a big fan of hers for years, ever since I saw her in Split. She was the lead in The Witch as well, directed by Robert Eggers. And again, I've only seen the movie once, so I don't know if this will hold true on repeat viewings, but I feel like this performance was better than The Witch. Anya Taylor-Joy has really evolved into such a brilliant actress, and I cannot wait to see what she does next. Overall, The Northman is exactly what you would expect from a film with Robert Eggers' name on it. It's directed incredibly well, there's some brilliant cinematography, super subtle musical score in there, and he really understands how to transport you back to the time frame that his story takes place in. Well, not to mention all these actors doing a brilliant job. But I do have a couple of issues with The Northman. First of all, if you don't like slow burns, oh boy, you're in for it. This movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Definitely felt a little bit longer, especially with that first act. I feel like it was a little bit more slow-paced as compared to the second and third acts, which were incredibly intense. It kind of felt a little bit off balance to me, looking back in hindsight. And there's just something else that I cannot take my mind off of, especially as a fan of a specific playwright. But this story, beat for beat, almost, it reminded me a lot of Hamlet. I mean, just look at the main character's name. It's Amleth. You just switch the first letter and you put it on the end, and there you go. And the uncle kills the boy's father. The boy is exiled for years and years and years, and then his mother ends up marrying the uncle. Like, this is Hamlet. And I honestly couldn't believe my eyes. I was expecting just a teensy bit more originality. Not that there aren't some tweaks to the story, and I realize that Hamlet may not have been the original source material for this, and this just may be a gigantic coincidence, but that was all I could see when I was watching The Northman and this story unfolding. It was basically just Hamlet in Viking form. And I'm not trying to be harsh on the movie at all, because this is one of the strongest films of 2022 so far, easily, as I expected it to be going into the new year. But that was just something I could not shake my mind clear of. That might just be me as someone who studied Shakespeare when I was in college, and as someone who knows Hamlet inside and out. And it's different when you have something like The Lion King, which is clearly a children's adaptation of Hamlet. The Northman is not made for children, clearly, with all the blood and guts and gore everywhere. So in the back of my mind, you know, I'm definitely curious to watch The Northman again, but there was a part of me in the back of my mind that was like, you know, I could be watching Hamlet and I would get the exact same emotional pull. You know what I mean? Like, not that the Northman was bad at all, but it just felt super derivative to one of the most famous Shakespeare plays of all time. And again, it may just be a gigantic coincidence. This is what I saw. But the final verdict, my friends, the Northman is absolutely worth your time, especially if you're a hardcore cinephile like I am. I'm gonna give the Northman an A-. This is just based off first viewing. What I saw, I really enjoyed. I would love to examine this film more and more with you guys. I think if I were to rank the Robert Eggers movies, this is just personal preference, but I think I may enjoy The Lighthouse just a smidge over this. But let me know how you guys would rank Robert Eggers' films down in the comments section below. Let me know what you guys thought of Northman, if this made you excited to see the Northman if you haven't already. As you guys know, I love discussing all brand new things, movies and entertainment with you guys. So if these sound like topics that you're interested in discussing along with me, why don't you go ahead and smash that subscribe button along with that notification bell right next to it as hard as you possibly can. That way y'all can always stay in the know whenever there's a new upload over here. And please feel free to smash that like button on your way out. This is also tremendously helpful to these videos. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more exciting content hitting this channel very soon. I will also be catching the bad guys in the unbearable weight of massive talent later this weekend, so bear with me. I have a really busy schedule coming up here, so stay tuned for all that stuff and much more. I'll also be starting that Jurassic Park series I mentioned on my last live stream, Before You Know It, with that original classic from 1993. I can't wait to go back and revisit that with you guys. But I can't thank y'all nearly enough once again for your support that you've shown me. It's flooring me. Thank you. And with all that being said, back talk, commence.